Hi, my name is Tony Tran, and I'm a student at Laney College, and today we'll be working on a calculus problem. The problem we'll be working on is from the Stewart book, number 2, and the problem asks us to find the volume of a solid rotated about the x-axis. So the function they give us is y equals 1 minus x squared, and it's going to be bounded by the x-axis, where y equals 0, and the bounds -1 and 1. In order to find the volume, we're going to have to first find the area underneath the graph, underneath the function. So, moving down to this picture, when we rotate the area around underneath this function about the x-axis, we create a sphere. What we're going to try to do is cut this sphere up into little slices that end up being little cylinders. Here is a cross-section of that cylinder. The thickness of the cylinder will be dx, and the radius is r. We know that r is equal to y, and from the very beginning we know y is equal to 1 minus x squared. So, knowing that, we can set up our function to find the volume underneath the function. So, what we're going to work with is the integral from -1 to 1 pi r squared dx. This will help us find the volume of all these little cross sections of the cylinders from one end all the way to the other end, and that'll give us the total volume. So, from here, we just kind of plug in everything. We get pi integral from -1 to 1 of r squared, which is 1 minus x squared squared times dx. And from there, in order to integrate, we're going to need to expand the function. It becomes pi integral from -1 to 1 of 1 minus x squared times 1 minus x squared dx. And this is equal to pi integral from -1 to 1 of, and then we kind of just multiply it out. 1 times 1 is 1, 1 times negative x squared plus negative x squared gives us negative 2x squared, and then the ends, negative x squared times negative x squared gives us positive x to the 4th dx. So in that form we can integrate. So what we get is pi multiplied, we bracket it here, and the integral of 1 is x, the integral of negative 2x squared becomes negative 2x cubed to the over 3, plus the integral of x to the 4th becomes x to the 5th over 5, and all of this from -1 to 1 dx. So now we just kind of plug in the points. We get pi, and then we want to bracket it up. First we plug in 1, so x becomes 1 minus 2 times 1 to the 3rd over 3 plus 1 to the 5th over 5. Now, we're going to have to subtract this part of the function. So the x becomes a minus x, and then we plug in -1, and then the negative 2/3 x cubed becomes a positive, because a negative and a negative make a positive. Then we plug in the -1, so it becomes 2 to the -1 cubed over 3, and then also subtracting the x to the 5th. A minus and a plus make a minus, so that's how we get that. And then we plug in -1 to the 5th over 5. So we just kind of simplify all that, and we get pi times 1 minus 1 to the 3rd is just 1, so it becomes 2/3. 1 to the 5th becomes just 1/5. minus -1 becomes plus 1. 2 times -1 to the third, because it's an odd power, just becomes odd. So the plus gets kind of canceled out and turned into a minus. So it's -2/3 plus 1/5 because the sign changes here. Because it's an odd power again, the negative comes down here and becomes a positive. So then we kind of simplify that, and we get pi times 1 plus 1 is 2 minus 4/3, because -2/3 minus another 2/3 gives us 4/3, minus 4/3, and then 1/5 plus 1/5 equals 2/5. And then we simplify that, and with the calculator, we get pi times 16 over 15, and then simplify that further, and we get 16 pi over 15. And that should be the total volume of this function bounded from -1 to 1, rotated about the x-axis.